Welcome to another Screenfish One-on-One. I'm thrilled you could join us today as we are here with Antonio Ienco, one of the director of the Vaughan Film Festival, Vaughan International Film Festival?
You got it.
Vaughan International Film Festival, which is taking place this weekend and next weekend, I believe, here in Vaughan, Ontario. Antonio, thank you so much for taking some time. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve, for taking the time out of your schedule to interview me and ask a little bit more about what is Cinema Under the Stars and inspiring future filmmakers and all these incredible programs. So thank you.
Well, I'm excited about this because I have had the chance to be to the Vaughan Film Festival before. But let's start with that. Talking about this, I was wondering for you, how long has the film festival been running, and how did it come about?
So it's a great question because we're in our 10th year this year. We celebrate our 10-year milestone. So we've already had our June programming, which is our typical 1 week long festival with international films that submit student films, as well as an award show that ties it all in. But this programming that we're doing right now, what makes it so unique is it was actually because of the pandemic. The pandemic challenged the festival for the last 2 years. And I'll circle back to you originally asked like where it started. So I'll circle back to it, but I sort of want to give you the Coles notes of where we are, why we're here, and then I'll take you back to like where we started. So the last obviously 2 years, similar to a lot of other events, we had to shift things. Instead of shifting to a virtual format, we tried to create the safest in-person experience that we could for people, knowing like the impact on people's mental health for having to stay home and do everything from, we call it the comfort of our own home, but I think it got to a point where it was like the least comforting place was being at home for that long period of time. So we were super challenged with putting on an event in 2020, but we were probably the only event outdoors in the city of Vaughan in the year of 2020. At that time, Canada's Wonderland was closed. There was a whole bunch of other things that had closed down, but we put together a drive-in. I grew up watching films at the drive-in. We would go 3-4 times a summer with my family. All jump in the Jeep Blazer and head down to the 400 drive-in, which is funny because it's like right next to where we are now, where it used to be. But we would all jump in my dad's Blazer and the whole family would go out and watch films. And we would always go on those like super long weekends where they would play like, I think it was 3 to 5 films in a row. So you were watching them while the sun was rising the next day. I remember watching City of Angels. It stands out. I just remember Nicolas Cage in City of Angels, and like the ending of it, he's on top of that skyscraper, and it was like the sun was rising. And while I'm watching that, I'm seeing the sunrise behind him. Something that always sticks in my head. But I feel like there's nothing like going to the drive-in to be able to be outdoors with friends and family and see these incredible films, any films that you're interested in going out to see. There's something special about seeing it in that format. So we did that for the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021. Huge success. People loved it and actually encouraged us to shift our regular programming in June to an outdoor format. So we're having talks about what that might look like. But we wanted to change it up this year with obviously less restrictions, things starting to normalize. We wanted to create an event that allowed people to get out of their cars. So we created what is VFF Shortcuts. Shorts, because the festival focuses on short films, anything 20 minutes or less. And then Cuts, the acronym for Cinema Under the Stars. And the idea is that we get guests to come out. We have Muskoka chairs out there. We have food vendors. We have a little market that takes place. There's musical acts that are leading up to every screening each night. So you get a chance to enjoy these incredible films, incredible musical acts, this great little market to support small businesses, all in the comfort of one block to be able to experience all these things. So that's where we are now with what Cinema Under the Stars is. But how we got to this point, 10 years ago, myself and a friend of mine, we ran our own production company. And from that, we knew that we always wanted to create an opportunity for emerging artists. When you're your own independent filmmaker, you know the trials and tribulations of starting your own production. I like to say you're not going in on a shoestring budget, you're going in on a no-string budget. And we saw those challenges. And then to layer on the fact that you submit to these festivals and you have to budget for hotel accommodations, airfare, the whole 9 yards, it becomes super challenging. And a lot of times filmmakers can't make those trips out there. But if you're going to make the trip out there, is there a return on your investment? And it's not always distribution. Unfortunately, as much as everyone would love to secure distribution at every festival they go to, the reality is that's not the case. So we knew that it was important to add some sort of educational component to the festival, and in tandem with that, bridge the emerging artists with the industry professionals, so that when you left this festival experience being VFF, you felt like there was a return on your investment. Like you had, again, being an independent filmmaker, a lot of those proceeds or a lot of the funding that you're using is your personal funding from your full-time job that you're doing something else. And for me, for the first 4 years, I was an electrician. So I would be doing electrical during the day, be on the job site at 7 o'clock, finish at like 3, 4 in the afternoon, and then go on a film set until 1, 2 in the morning. But when you love it, it's not like you're going to 2 jobs. It's like you have 1 job and you're going to something that you love afterwards. So we did that. We started the idea in 2013 based on our own, I guess, trials and tribulations of not having a budget to get into festivals or making the trip out there. We knew we wanted to fill that void. And instead of just complaining about it, we knew starting a festival would have been part of that solution. So that was 2013. Ever since then, we've had over 1,000 submissions come into the festival from over 60 different countries. And when we say international, we don't use that word lightly. If you look at our programming, I think this year we're looking at, this past programming, our 2022 programming in June, I think we had our most wide array of films from different countries in regards to the program. And we've actually never had, it's unfortunate, but there's a plus to it too. It just shows the type of international content we have. We've never had a Canadian film win best film at the festival. And we've been running this for 10 years. I've noticed that the quality of Canadian short films have gotten substantially better, at least the ones that have submitted to the festival I could speak to. And we've had, like this year, Ali Dunbar won Best Actress for a film called The Bubble, which was actually nominated for Best Film as well. So we're starting to see emerging Canadian artists really take advantage of VFF, which they should, because it's in their own backyard. And it's not like they're traveling that far. If they're from the province of Ontario already, it's a drive away, right? Why not take advantage of it? So yeah, I guess, I don't know if I answered that question. I sort of went off, but I was trying to paint that whole picture of where we are with it.
No, absolutely. And that's exciting. You know what I love that you touched on there is that a lot of people don't realize that whether it's a short film or a feature, that it's a labor of love for the filmmaker. I have a friend who finished a documentary. It's a feature length. He's been trying to get funding for it. He's just finished it, but it took him 7 or 8 years to get the funding. Most people, when they hear about a film, they think about The Rock making $30 million per film, so it's a big budget. But a lot of vast majority of these films, especially shorts, are from people who just really want to tell a story, and they're doing it themselves.
And the interesting thing, and now that you brought that up, Steve, is a lot of these filmmakers that we talk about, the Spielbergs, the Coppolas, they've started with shorts,
Hmm.
right? Like the Steven Spielberg's company, Amblin, it was the first title of his short film. Like there's a sense of pride in your first short.
Hmm.
It's the first time you got your feet wet with it. Usually, and not in all cases, some directors, they go to TV and then straight from TV, they might do feature. Or now it seems like TV is more prominent than feature. So they go from feature to like a television series or a streaming series. But I find that for the most part, the short is something more manageable when it comes to like a budget, obviously, and then being able to like bring in talent for it. And a lot more people are willing to work on it. To work on as a labor of love, as opposed to there being hefty costs on bringing in a DP and so on and so forth. And that's really where these emerging directors get their feet wet. And then you see, like we've seen it from the festivals channel, we've seen emerging directors submit shorts to the festival and they've done well across the festival circuit. And then their next film is a feature and they got green lit with like a massive budget. And like a perfect example is in 2013, in our first year of the festival, we actually had the Oscar-winning short film Curfew
Hmm.
submit to VFF. And that film got picked up Netflix ended up making a feature-length version of it called Before I Disappear, and starred Emmy Rossum, Ron Perlman, had a pretty big cast, a pretty notable cast. But it started with a short, and the short was so well received that obviously there was an interest in green lighting it to create it into a feature. So sometimes it works that way. Sometimes the short is just the short. I love the idea when the short really just sits as its own. It doesn't necessarily need to be extended to a feature. And then that becomes your calling card or your business card when you're going to a meeting with the studio, because there's nothing more valuable than having actually made a film. Doesn't matter what the length is. But there's nothing more valuable than sitting with a producer and they're asking you, what have you done? And as opposed to just a screenplay you're presenting, it's like, no, this is a short film that I made
Yeah.
this past year, right? Because if they're looking at it, they're thinking, well, what was your budget? You can use any number for that matter, but your budget's going to be significantly more when you're doing your feature. So if I'm a producer and I saw what you did with a short film and how impactful that short was and how little your budget was, I can only imagine what that's going to translate to when it comes to a feature. As long as we're supporting the artist's vision, I think that's important. If they were already able to demonstrate what they're capable of with that budget and that film, you got to honor that artist's vision and work with them. And I'm seeing more producers, and I'm hearing it more in the industry as well. Is there like the writer is really considered like one of the most important people in a project, which
Mm,
wasn't always the case, right? There was that period of time where there was the writer's strike on
yeah.
television, right? Like it's and writers would argue with me, and some would say that they're still underrepresented when it comes to films. But what I'm hearing now more than ever, and I really feel like Sopranos was like the kickoff for that, like what Matthew Weiner had done, and then he ended up
Yeah.
doing Mad Men after that. Like from my understanding, HBO was excited about the fact that like this screenplay looks incredible, and we want to bring these individuals on board to take this to another level. And I think that was one of the first times where I feel like the screenwriter on that probably got like one of the top, well, it's one of the top credits because right when Tony pulls up to his house, you always see who it's written by. So they're really recognizing that. And I feel like they really came out of the gate with that and demonstrated the importance of a writer, and everyone else will fall into play. Because if I'm an A-lister and it's hard enough to tie that person into a project, if that screenplay is strong enough, they're more likely to say yes to it and bite the bullet on the budget. And you hear about this all the time. It's like people will just want to work with Wes Anderson or Christopher Nolan. So they're willing to take a substantial pay cut just to get in a film with them and have that on their demo reel, or just to say that they'd work with them, right, as part of their credits. So, and it's the screenwriter, right? It's the screenwriter that develops those. When it's Nolan, it's usually his brother that he works with on the screenwriting. But it's those screenwriters that draw the script, bring the script to life, and then it's these filmmakers that obviously breathe life into that script, and then they cast accordingly. And with a strong script, you can do a lot of incredible things.
Yeah, I absolutely. One of we lose sight of the process a lot of times, or the team aspect of something like this. It's not about one person, but I love that you're talking about the writing there, because that is so often overlooked, because they don't often get their names up on the marquee. Like you said.
Right.
Um, just talking about the festival here, I was wondering about the emphasis on shorts, because this is a really unique festival in the sense. Well, I mean, there are other festivals that have to do with shorts. We talked about this one, but you're sitting out in the stars, and you're getting a feast of shorts from all over the world. Why such an emphasis on short films? Why are they so important to you?
That's a great point. I think it's such a unique experience, especially in Vaughan, because there isn't another short festival in the city.
Right.
But I also think that when you look at some of these other festivals, when they program shorts, they're like wedged in between the features, right? The focus is always the features, and the shorts are put in within the programs that the programming time that is available. And there's no fault to the festival. Festival's focus is features. I get that, right? When we started it, the idea was always to provide an opportunity for the emerging filmmakers.
Mm,
And to, reiterate what I had said earlier, the emerging filmmakers are usually starting out with short films. So if we're going to talk about celebrating emerging filmmakers, then we really have to consider what programming fits best for them. And it's the shorts. But in doing that, you actually open up an entirely new door to filmgoers, right? Because they're so traditionally you're going out to a screening for another festival, and that one film is your night. You might have like a matinee show that you see earlier, and then go to the evening show. And I really think Hot Docs and TIFF are like two of the only ones that people are actually taking time off work
yeah.
and seeing like a matinee show and an evening show. And thank God for those two festivals, because people can actually appreciate the value of what a festival can do for their community. So I'm extremely grateful to be as close as we are to Hot Docs and to TIFF, and for them to demonstrate to their communities the impact of festivals on their community. But shorts is you're sitting in a theater for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you mentioned earlier you're getting this like It's like a treat. It's like a packaged treat of all these incredible films from all these incredible places across the globe. And they're all sharing their different stories within that block of an hour and a half to 2 hours. So you leave there feeling like you've traveled the globe. I love saying that, like coming into a VFF screening, you feel like you traveled the globe because and obviously every person has their own lived experiences. But when you start looking outside of Canada and North America, and start listening to the stories of these filmmakers abroad, you really have a better appreciation for what's going on in the world because they're telling it from their perspective, and it's not being run through a media outlet and having like pulled a lot of the pieces out that might be like conflicting with what the media outlet feels is valuable. And no, the filmmakers telling it from the source,
Mm.
and they're telling you and it might be super unpleasant to watch, and I shouldn't say to watch. It might be super unpleasant to like experience when you're watching it, but it's some of the realities that they're going through. And films aren't always going to make you feel great. They're going to make you feel uncomfortable. They're going to challenge the way you think. And when they get you to do that, and we use our hashtag talking film, we use it for so many reasons because the idea is when you walk out of a VFF screening, you should be talking film,
Mm.
right? And it's not so much about like one actor or that actor's performance was great. Like, because you're walking out of the screening of like 10 to 16 films, you're talking about the films more so than anything. And isn't that what festivals are all about, is talking about the experience you had of seeing these short or like films in general, but getting a chance to see like half of our lineup in one night, because our traditional festivals, 2 nights of international screenings and 1 night of student screenings, which we'll talk about in a bit. But this year we had 8 films in each block. So we had 16 films in total. So if you were able to somehow, with everyone's busy schedule, allocate 2 days of that week, the Monday and the Wednesday, to watch films, you've watched our whole lineup. And then
Wow.
when you're coming to the award show on the Thursday, you're sitting at this award show, which I'm not saying it's something that's reiterated by a lot of other people. It feels like you're at the Oscars or short films. Like we go above and beyond. Anybody who visits our website, looks at our gallery of our award show, we've had a 250-foot red carpet by 30 feet wide. Like this is my event hat that I'm wearing. I know how rare it is to see those things unless you're at TIFF rolling on the red carpet at like Reitman Square. You're not really seeing that size, but for us, we want to put these short filmmakers on the same pedestal that these feature filmmakers are put on, because these are the next wave. This group is the next wave of filmmakers. So wouldn't you want to celebrate them now and then encourage that idea and encourage them, hopefully, to continue to pursue this? And that might translate to them telling features. And if we can encourage storytellers to tell stories, we've done our job.
I love that you're saying that, and I love you've talked quite a bit about helping emerging filmmakers. I would like to. I would love to know not just why that's important to you, because you've sort of shared that, but how you're doing that. Like what, like you, I know you said that one of the nights is, I think you said one of the nights is just for young filmmakers or student filmmakers.
Student filmmakers, yeah.
So how is it that you're showing support to that next generation to help them progress?
So our student film lineup, which is it's separate, but it's also in tandem with the festival, which is another thing we love about it. It happens the week of our main festival. And in some cases, it's actually opened up the festival. And in this last year, we had it on the Tuesday, which was in between the two international blocks. But what we do, well, first, obviously, we want to support emerging filmmakers. So we usually use short films as a catalyst to do that. Secondly, we want to encourage them even earlier in their lives to pursue film. So how do you do that? Well, we challenge high school filmmakers across the province of Ontario to submit a 10-minute short film to VFF. We usually get about 100 short films across the province that submit to the festival. The winning school receives a bursary from VFF, receives a gift card from one of our local partners. It's usually like a camera rental place or a camera store. And we do that because we want to encourage them to create their next project once they're done that film in high school, right? So what gets us excited is the idea that you hear these filmmakers end up pursuing their post-secondary education. They talk about how the festival inspired them to continue to pursue their passion for filmmaking. And we hear this all the time from filmmakers that have come through the festival's channel, that have, whether they've won best at VFF, they've been nominated, or they just screen, it's that it was the excitement of having their friends and family come on and watch these films on a Cineplex screen. And their parents and family members actually understanding that, like, my son or daughter could potentially like do this for a living. And sometimes you need to create those lived experiences for the family members to appreciate what their son or daughter is trying to accomplish.
Mm,
Because it's one thing to say I'm a filmmaker and then I go out and shoot things. And don't get me wrong, now the power of the cell phone is a whole nother world. I get that, right?
true.
And like you can share it on TikTok and it blows up. But if you're trying to craft the art of filmmaking and storytelling, like when especially parents who grew up in an era where going to the theater was more prominent than not, it's those same people that these children, or I shouldn't say these students, are convincing their parents at. They're at a Cineplex saying, "Mom, Dad, like this is what I want to do for a living." And when they see it on the big screen, they see that their child's film is being shown there. They might actually like have a different conversation with their child where it's less, this is just a hobby of yours. It's more, okay, what can I do to help you? How can I support you? And we've heard that from a lot of parents. We've heard it from student filmmakers that have gone into the festival, that because of VFF, they were inspired to continue to pursue their artistic ambition, and their parents were more supportive of it.
That's powerful. That's amazing. Um, because you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm not throwing shade on parents at all to say this, but it's hard when your kid says, "Oh, I'm going to make movies." Well, what does that
Yeah.
mean? What does that mean? Well, uh, especially since we talked about how, especially when you're starting out, there's you, it's a lot of time and effort and money to be involved. But to get that support from the parents, I think is an incredible opportunity to do that. Just as you're talking there, I'm just thinking, and I don't know if this is an answerable question or not, but do you think there's been a shift or a change in this generation of storytellers? Because you brought up things like TikTok and YouTube, stuff like that, and it is amazing to me, not just that is a thing, because that's nonsense for me to say that, but that is we're living in a time where everybody wants to tell their story in one way or another. So has that changed? Have you seen a change in whether the way they tell their stories or the volume of people that want to tell their stories?
Well, volume for sure. And I
Mm,
have to say, I think they're more ambitious now than ever
mm,
because they've seen less captivating stories blow up on social. So I feel like, and I feel like we're getting to a point now where there was a period of time where you could throw anything up on social and like it was so new and fresh that people would love it and like it, right? And like there's these dance crazes on TikTok and all that. I
mm.
think it's going to come full circle. I think the storyteller is going to prevail again. I don't think we're there yet. We're starting to see it. You see some of these, I don't want to call it, they're like video creators, right? That put these incredible videos together of like their travel, right? Like they've gone to some country and like they put a video together. And it's less now just a highlight reel. It's more of a story of their adventure on that trip. So they're on the trip thinking, what is the most captivating story?
Mm.
Like growing up, when I went on a trip, as much as I love film, I was looking forward to like being on a pool and relaxing, right? Like I was looking forward to go to Disneyland and like, taking advantage of the theme park and the rides. You're seeing more and more that they're thinking about video concepts all the time. And you're already seeing like, and I've talked to a few people in marketing that have mentioned to me that there's more excitement now or more interest on social with like videos than there is of just like stills or like just graphics. Like to tell a story, a human story is really what's going to captivate people. And you've seen huge corporations do the same thing. It's like, the banks of the world, let's tell a story about how we help this small family, this young family, I should say, like get their first mortgage. But
Yeah.
like, let's tell the story of this family doing that. That's part of the next wave of filmmakers. They're telling these engaging stories, and they're more willing to like take the risk I think now, because I think and in all fairness, like the fall is a lot less. Like you're not being given this budget and these expectations. You're doing it on your own dime. You're doing it on your own time, and if it doesn't do well, it's going to have a few less hits than you wanted it to, and you can always pull it off social. But now you have this incredible platform that allows you to tell as many stories as you want. Does it become inundating? Yes, there's a lot of stuff out there that I have no interest in watching. But again, I think the next wave you're going to see happen are these great storytellers start to prevail through TikTok, through all these different channels. Story always wins. Story over everything. Like story always wins. And if you have a captivating story, people will be interested in it. Like how many times have we seen 100 $200 million films that have fallen flat because they're not pulled from like a great story? And then how many times have you heard of these simple, super simple stories, but captivating stories that have moved the audience that watches it, and that trickle effect, especially now with social, everyone's talking about it, right? So I think you're going to see story prevail again, but I'm excited that the platform gives everyone these opportunities to tell their stories.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that story over everything. There's your
Yeah.
tagline for 2023.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. Actually, that's a Penn Dance Film Festival tagline. I love that they do that. So I want to quote them on that. They were the ones who use that for their tag. I think it's amazing because it really is story over everything, and they do such a great job there at Penn Dance as well. Um, but yeah, there's like it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out, right? Like you look at success in some stories and then the failure of others, and if it's not drawn from the right place, there's not going to be an interest. Like you have to give and Spielberg says this all the time, give the audience more credit. Like make them, challenge them a bit, right? Like let them come up with some of the discovery of things that you need to. Don't always give the audience everything they think they want to see. And like a perfect example is War of the Worlds. Like you very rarely saw these alien creatures. Like you saw it through the reflection of like a windshield on a car while Tom Cruise was running. You
Mm,
saw Tom Cruise's reaction as he runs up that hill and he's looking over the hill and seeing what's happening, but he never cuts to give you what's happening. Give the
mm.
audience the opportunity to develop these stories themselves. And the story that they're going to create is more captivating than anything you can put on screen. Challenge them a bit more and give them the opportunity to use their own imagination to fill a lot of the gaps.
Absolutely, absolutely. Antonio, this is phenomenal. I'm loving our conversation, but we're running out of time. I'm just wondering, before we wrap up, how can people get involved in the Vaughan International Film Festival? How can they connect?
Well, I guess to tie everything up nicely as well, as soon as before I get into like plugging in the dates, on top of the outdoor cinema that we also have, sorry, we also have Inspiring Future Filmmakers IFF seminar series that's taking
Mm,
place the next 2 Sundays. We have one on acting with Amy Jo and Sergio DeZio. They're both actors from Flashpoint. And then we have another one. So there's two on Sunday. There's one at 12 o'clock with them, and there's one at 4 o'clock with Steve Tickner. He's the supervising sound editor for the last 3 Spider-Man films.
wow.
So if you want to talk about like supervising sound editor is the director of sound for a film. And we know how important sound is, especially when it comes to Spider-Man. So to get a chance to meet with this individual and ask him questions directly is going to be super exciting. That's a Sunday at 4. And then next week we have a picture editor, JJ Geiger, who's going to be talking about picture editing and what his process has been with that. And he's done shows like Reacher. He's done quite a few different shows if anyone wants to look into it. But yeah, we're excited to touch on these 3 components, and tickets are still available. Visit vaughanfilmfestival.com for that. And you'll also see the rest of the programming that's included in that. Definitely take a look at the website. Follow us on social at Vaughan Film Festival on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, the whole 9 yards.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I was at one of those film festivals during the pandemic where it really is remarkable to be out there. Even well, first of all, during the pandemic, it was remarkable to be out there. But I mean, just the opportunity to take in these great short films out under the stars is wonderful. I think it's a great opportunity, and honestly, thank you for your time, Antonio. I wish you the best with the
Thank you,
festival.
Steve. Thank you for your time as well. I appreciate it.
Anytime, anytime. Thanks again, and we'll get the word out.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks so much.
Don't worry, like you never started.